And we're back with Commissioner Linares talking about immigration. Again, thank you for being on the program. I think we're providing a service here today on this program because you're going to give us a lot of information. There's a lot of immigrants in the Bronx, and we need them to find out what really is happening on many of these fronts, especially when it comes to what's happening in Washington, how that's going to affect New York. What does your agency anticipate will be happening when changes come about in Washington? But first of all, just tell me, you are an immigrant yourself. Tell me about yourself and how does Guillermo Linares, the young guy from the Dominican Republic, end up, becoming the advocate for all immigrants?
Well, it's so funny for me to be here in the Bronx because this is where I landed when I first arrived straight from a farm in the Dominican Republic, and not knowing one word of English. The oldest of 9 children. When I arrived, there were 7. I have 6 brothers and sisters. Now two were born here in New York City. And it's funny because when I first arrived, I was in the 8th grade, junior high school. I already had a job. My parents had arrived 3 years before. They were undocumented. They worked in the garment industry.
So you understand what it's like. You have it in your own family.
Exactly,
Okay.
and they lived in the Lower East Side in a 1-room apartment, and then moved to the Bronx to a larger apartment when the 7 children came here. And I had my first job. Don Rafael Díaz, el puertorriqueño de Ponce, gave me my first job. I was held up after a while and went to a supermarket to work, and went to Roosevelt High School. That's where I struggle learning English and behave, and graduated with a general diploma, and I was not supposed to be college material, so I was supposed to go work full-time somewhere. But my parents, and my mother especially, wouldn't take that as an answer, and so I went to City College to become a teacher. That was my path when I realized how hard it is for someone to come from a home country, not knowing a word of English and not being familiar with the setting. I knew that I wanted to help other immigrants and other children like me when they arrive here, and I became a teacher, landed in Washington Heights, an activist for 15 years, volunteering after 3 o'clock.
And of course, in that area, a lot of the issues that you were dealing with were immigration issues.
Mostly immigration, because this is where the majority of Dominican families that were arriving in the 70s and the 80s and early 90s were landing. And so I found myself helping parents learn English. My father took the GED with me. He had an 8th grade education because that's how high the schools went in my hometown. And so my mother learned English slowly. I learned English struggling. I drove a taxi 5 years here in the Bronx and in northern Manhattan. It was a gypsy, we called it back there, and again I was held up the last day that I drove. It was a yellow. I drove 3 years a gypsy, 2 years a yellow, while I pay and that's how I paid my way through college. And so then my activism, rather than continuing education, the people that I was working and active, parents and community people, said, you must run. You should run. I ran for office. I had run for school board and I got elected 3 times in the 80s. So they said, now it's time for you to run. So I stepped up, and then the rest is history. I became the first Dominican elected to government in the United States, and served 10 years. I didn't know that when I got elected, I was going to be a city council, the first Latino immigrant, because there were 8 Latinos in the city council. They were Puerto Ricans. So when I got there, Colombians, Ecuadorians, Dominicans, Cubans, I mean, everybody started, now you represent us because you're an immigrant. Right. Well, we all represented them as Latinos in the city council. But I felt honored to be in a position of representing immigrants like me at that level. And then the mayor asked me if I would join, trying to finish my doctorate at Columbia University. He asked me if I would join his administration, and I said, let me finish writing my doctoral dissertation. This is so important. He says, you'll get to finish, but I want you on board. And I accepted. I finished. Now I have my doctorate. The kid that was not college material.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Graduated from Columbia University and now represent all immigrants. I think is the highest honor. And it's something that this country gives to anyone who comes, work hard, do the best that they can, and study. And, you know, opportunities are there for you. And that's what I think made this country.